House and Senate Democrats have consistently made clear that we will sit down with anyone at any time and at any place, either here at the Capitol or over at the White House, to reopen the government, to enact a bipartisan spending agreement that actually meets the needs of the American people, and to address the Republican health care crisis.
Jeffries just challenged you to a debate on the House floor today. Do you see yourself debating him, or would you be?
When the poll says that about 13% of the people approve of your messaging, then you make desperate pleas for attention, and that's what Hakeem Jeffries has done. But look, my friend Hakeem had his shot. We debated all this on the House floor, as you know, before he passed our bill. He spoke for 7 or 8 minutes. He had all of his colleagues lined up. They gave it their best shot. They argued and they stomped their feet and screamed at us and all that. And still, we passed the bill in bipartisan fashion and sent it over to the Senate. The House has done its job. I'm not going to let Hakeem try to pretend for these theatrics. I mean, this is a Chuck Schumer decision. The ball is in the Senate's court now. The House has done this. We don't need to waste time on that nonsense. Those debates have been had. Colleague's a friend. I mean, Hakeem is a friend and a colleague. I respect him, but we all know what he's trying to do there.
House and Senate Democrats have consistently made clear that we will sit down with anyone at any time and at any place, either here at the Capitol or over at the White House, to reopen the government, to enact a bipartisan spending agreement that actually meets the needs of the American people, and to address the Republican health care crisis. We need House Republicans to actually get serious about engaging in a bipartisan conversation that is designed to find the common ground necessary to address the issues of importance to the American people, which include the high cost of living in the United States of America. This country is far too expensive, and Republican policies have made it worse. And the Republican health care crisis that is devastating people all across the country, in urban America, in rural America, in small town America, in working class America, in the heartland of America, and in black and brown communities all across the United States of America. The largest cut to Medicaid in American history, because of the Republican one big ugly bill, setting in motion a $536 billion cut to Medicare if Congress doesn't act by the end of this year. Because of the Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, premiums, copays, and deductibles for tens of millions of Americans are skyrocketing all across the country in a manner that will deprive people of health insurance or lead to medical bankruptcy. We know hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health clinics all across the country, including in rural America, are closing because of the Republican health care crisis. And they've effectively ended medical research in the United States of America. This is a crisis that requires urgent action now. And Leader Schumer and myself have repeatedly made clear to the White House and to Republicans here on Capitol Hill that we're ready to sit down to work things out, but it has to be done in a way that actually improves the quality of life of the American people and doesn't continue to undermine it, which is what Republicans have done all year, hurting everyday Americans in order to reward their billionaire donors. Questions?
Leader Jeffries, Mr. Leader, thank you. I don't know if you heard the president's comments a short time ago in the Oval Office, but he did seem to indicate a willingness maybe to negotiate on the ACA subsidies. He said if we made the right deal. He also seemed to suggest that, well, he said something to the effect of we're talking to Democrats. So A, have you had any conversations as of late with the president or the White House? And B, what do you make of his willingness maybe to strike a deal here?
Well, the White House has gone radio silent since the Oval Office meeting last Monday, and neither Leader Schumer or myself have heard a word from the administration about resolving this issue, making clear to us that the White House wanted to shut the government down, to continue the chaos that they've been inflicting on the American people since day one of this presidency. It's an interesting statement that the president has made, and I think both House and Senate Democrats are clear. We'll sit down anytime, any place with anyone from your administration, including the president, to get a resolution here with respect to the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which need to be extended right now, as well as dealing with and addressing the Republican health care crisis that is devastating everyday Americans all across the country.
Leader Jeffries, do you still intend to call House Democrats back into D.C. this week at all?
We have a caucus meeting at 6 p.m. today. We'll have a House Democratic caucus leadership meeting. That's the full leadership tomorrow, and I expect a strong presence of House Democrats throughout the week here in Washington. And the interesting thing to me is, why are House Republicans still on vacation? They've actually been on vacation for the last few weeks, and Mike Johnson, once again, has canceled votes. Why are they so afraid of being here at the Capitol and doing their job? Why don't Republicans want to swear in Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva? Is it the Epstein files? Is it the unwillingness to address the Republican health care crisis? Is it because they know the American people have blamed Republicans for recklessly shutting down the government? Or is it all of the above? House Democrats are here on duty. House Republicans remain on vacation. That's a shame. Back?
What do you say to your young constituents, energized young constituents that helped put Mamdani in the position that he's in, and now they're calling for you to represent their wishes and endorse him?
I think I've answered those questions repeatedly, and I have more to say before early voting. Thanks.
Democrats historically have been relatively anti-shutdown. Are you concerned, as this drags out, that you might be helping normalize that as a negotiating tactic?
No, we're not normalizing anything here. What we're normalizing is the notion that if Republicans want Democrats to participate in a spending bill that requires Democratic votes in the Senate, and I'm thankful for Senate Democrats who are holding strong under the leadership of Chuck Schumer. If Republicans want Democratic participation in the appropriations process, then that means we actually have to come together, sit down, negotiate a bipartisan bill, and do something that makes life better for the American people and doesn't continue to hurt everyday Americans. We were very clear from the beginning. For weeks in September, we said we will not support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of the American people. We didn't hide that from anyone. We were very clear, live and direct, with Republicans and with the American people. And we're standing on the side of the American people who have experienced this devastating cut to Medicaid, this refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, this assault on their hospitals, their nursing homes, and their community-based health centers. And the American people have understandably had enough, and Democrats are standing on their side. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Leader. You challenged Speaker Johnson to a floor debate this morning. He responded that it was a desperate plea for attention. How do you answer that response from the Speaker to your challenge to debate him on the House floor in prime time?
Well, Mike Johnson and I, have a very open and candid and forward-looking relationship, and that will continue. But for the life of me, I can't understand. They don't want to defend their position privately. This is Republicans, extreme MAGA Republicans, and they don't want to defend their position publicly because their position related to gutting the health care of the American people and shutting down the government is indefensible. And we continue to give them every opportunity, every single opportunity, to explain themselves to the American people. Yet Republicans are on the run. That's why they're on vacation right now. That's why votes were canceled last week by Republicans in the House, and votes have been canceled this week. We're in the middle of a shutdown and a chaotic presidency that begun on January 20th and continues. This is a cost of living crisis that the American people are confronting. Donald Trump promised that costs would go down on day one. Republicans promised that costs would go down on day one. Costs haven't gone down, they've gone up America's become far too expensive. Inflation is on the way up. Electricity bills skyrocketing through the roof. Grocery costs out of control. Housing costs getting more and more expensive. And now Republicans are setting in motion the fact that housing and health care and grocery prices and all of the day-to-day expenses that the American people experience is not going to get better, it's going to get worse. And this health care crisis is exacerbating that.
Leader Jeffries.
Yep, back.
Sorry, I have to wear my heels today. So
Okay, I see you.
There was a new poll out today from CBS News. It was a CBS News and YouGov poll, and it basically says that Americans, by and large, pretty much evenly distribute blame on Republicans, Democrats, and then 30% blame both of you guys. Why do you think that they're not blaming Republicans far more the way that you are?
The overwhelming balance of public sentiment clearly is that Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Republicans have shut the government down. They've shut the government down because of their refusal to address the health care crisis that they've created. We're standing on the side of the health care of everyday Americans, working class Americans, middle class Americans, and hardworking American taxpayers, and we're going to continue to stand on their side because this issue matters. Lowering the cost of living matters. Making sure that the high price of health care doesn't continue to escalate in ways that's going to bankrupt people, that matters. That's why we're in this fight until we win this fight.
Do you think your message resonates?
Yes.
Just to clarify, it wasn't just that President Trump said he would be willing to work with Democrats. He said, I'm going to quote him, "We are speaking with the Democrats, and some very good things could happen with respect to health care." So you're saying you've had no discussions with the White House at all. Do you know of any Democrats that have spoken to President Trump at all on this issue?
I do not know of any Democrats who have spoken to President Trump or members of his administration on this issue of reopening the government, enacting a bipartisan spending agreement, and addressing the Republican health care crisis. President Trump did make those statements. Leader Schumer, I believe, has put a statement out in response indicating he's had no conversations with Donald Trump or the administration. And that's certainly been the case relative to us as House Democrats. That said, we're open. We've been calling for bipartisan conversations to address the Republican health care crisis, which includes extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits so that tens of millions of Americans don't experience dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles in an environment where the cost of living for everyday Americans is already too high. And so if President Trump is ready to have that conversation and is ready to talk about health care and is ready to talk about the Affordable Care Act tax credits and extending them, we of course look forward to sitting down and having that engagement, reopening the government, and getting the spending bill situation resolved in a manner that helps the American people. Last question.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. What do you make, though, of the president's comments today? What does that signal to you?
I think it signals the fact that Democrats have been talking about health care, and health care for the last several weeks. Republicans initially claimed that Democrats were not serious. We are very serious about the issue of improving the quality of life of the American people, about canceling the cuts, lowering the costs, and saving health care. Very serious about it. And we've made that clear from the beginning. And now it appears that President Trump, the administration, even House Republicans, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, acknowledge that this isn't a fake issue, that we actually need to deal with the health care of the American people, the skyrocketing health insurance costs, the fact that Republicans have broken our health care system, including the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, and they did it so they could reward their billionaire donors with massive tax breaks. By the way, Republicans enacted permanent tax breaks for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected in the United States of America. Permanent tax breaks. And now the nerve of these people to say to us that we don't have the time or inclination to address the Affordable Care Act tax credits for working class Americans and can't be bothered to extend them at all. And certainly I've taken the position that there's no circumstance where we will extend them permanently. This is because Republicans have very different priorities than we do. And our priorities as Democrats, House Democrats and Senate Democrats, will continue to be standing up for working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans who need us to fight for their health care, and we're in this fight until we win this fight on their behalf.
The ball is in the court of the Senate Democrats. There's only a handful of people in the country who can solve this problem. There's 47 Democrats. Well, 46 and one who caucuses as independent, I think. I lose track. But there's about 47 of them that caucus together as Democrats, okay? Here's the problem, remembering from civics. We don't have enough Republican votes to fix this. Because it takes 60 votes in the Senate to break this impasse, to open the government. There's only 53 Republicans in the Senate. We need some Democrats to be thoughtful and responsible and do the right thing. Because why? Because real people are being hurt in all these political games. As Chuck Schumer is trying to cover himself and not have a series of articles like this, okay? That's why this is happening. There's New York that Chuck Schumer represents of electing Marxists. They're about to elect an actual Marxist as the mayor of New York City, the once cradle of capitalism, the largest city in America. It's stunning. And I think it's stunning to Chuck Schumer, too, because while he's a far-left politician, he's not nearly as far-left as these guys, as they want him to be. And so he's trying to find political cover, and in doing that, he's hurting real American people. Who's being hurt? Women, infants, and children on their nutritional programs that are now stalled. Veterans' health services that they desperately need and demand. Go down the list. We've got our troops, Border Patrol agents, TSA agents serving, trying to protect America without pay right now. Half the federal civilian workforce is effectively laid off right now, furloughed. They can't go to work. They don't have the money. Chuck Schumer, for political cover, decided to turn off the funds. And real people are getting hurt. FEMA services, I keep saying this because I live in a hurricane state. We're in the middle of hurricane season, and flood insurance policies cannot be renewed or purchased right now because Chuck Schumer's playing political games. This is real pain for real people. I can go on. There are articles written the last 2 days. Some of your outlets wrote about low-income Medicaid or Medicare recipients, for example, who have been able to receive health care at home because we expanded that through telehealth and all that. All that is shut down. Yet people with autoimmune deficiencies who are also disabled, they cannot go visit the doctor's office. So thankfully, mercifully, they've been able to be treated at home. But all that just stopped. So people are canceling their health appointments with their physicians. It is vitally important for them to stay alive because Democrats over here are playing games. We have one plea and one plea alone. We need a handful of Democrats to stop the madness, reopen the government, so that we can get to these critical debates about the year-end policy decisions with regard to the further reforms to health care. Plain and simple, that's where we are. That's the facts, and everybody can draw their own conclusions. Don't listen to the words of politicians. Look at the actual evidence and the facts. And I think the case is very clear. Yes, sir, because you're standing up for it.
Jeffries just challenged you to a debate on the House floor today. Do you see yourself debating him, or would you be...
When the poll says that about 13% of the people approve of your messaging, then you make desperate pleas for attention, and that's what Hakeem Jeffries has done. But look, my friend Hakeem had his shot. We debated all this on the House floor, as you know, before he passed our bill. He spoke for 7 or 8 minutes. He had all of his colleagues lined up. They gave it their best shot. They argued and they stomped their feet and screamed at us and all that. And still, we passed the bill in bipartisan fashion and sent it over to the Senate. The House has done its job. I'm not going to let Hakeem try to pretend for these theatrics. I mean, this is a Chuck Schumer decision. The ball is in the Senate's court now. The House has done this. We don't need to waste time on that nonsense. Those debates have been had. Colleague's a friend. I mean, Hakeem is a friend and a colleague. I respect him, but we all know what he's trying to do there.
Yes, Speaker. So are you just out until the Senate votes for the CR?
I'm anxious to get my folks back. And look, I want to bring the House back into session and get back to work, but we can't do it till they turn the lights back on. We need Chuck Schumer to reopen the government, and as soon as he does that, we'll bring everybody back here. Yes, back right. Yes, sir.
Speaker, why not call it back in the session? Because with respect to what we said at the start about the importance of passing funding bills, there are still 9 funding bills to pass in the House.
Yeah, well, we remember, we passed them through the House committee, or out of committee, and we'll get them on the floor. And the appropriators have been working, and they are working as we speak, on trying to figure out which packages of bills we can move to the floor next. And there's some really good discussion that's been had. I myself have spoken to Democrat appropriators on the other side about these things and our commitments to move that and do it. I'll tell you, this is not some sort of confidential thing. I had I think a fruitful discussion with Senator Patty Murray about 2 days ago, a day or so ago. And I told her it is my full intention that if we break this impasse and we put these bills together, we have 3 of them in conference committee right now. Whatever the conference committee comes up with, I will put on the floor. I'm ready to go. But we've got to open government up so that they can move to that next level, so the conference committee can get that work done. That is small D democracy at its best. You get R's and D's, everybody in the room, and they hash it out, and whatever that final product is, we will move through the process. So we need to be able to government to do that. Yes, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I know your contention is that the ACA subsidies don't end until the end of this calendar year. Do you disagree with the Democrats' position that these insurance companies are setting their premium rates now, and that people are going to have to make open enrollment decisions in the very near future?
Yes,
part of the reason that you have to have this discussion now?
Yeah, they've been saying that some of the insurance companies will be sending out notices in early November. The last time I checked, it's October 6th. We have the entire month of October. We'll stay here around the clock to work through all these things, but we have to get government open again to do it. They're trying to obscure the issue. We are talking about a simple funding measure that the Democrats themselves have voted on over and over and over. Chuck Schumer, they voted on it 13 times during the Biden administration. This is the exact same thing that was on the floor in March when Chuck Schumer, I should have brought his video and let him give you the speech of why it was so important to pass it. Nothing has changed except the politics. That's a political issue that they're trying to make out of it. Yes,
Mr. Johnson, thank you. You mentioned that there is no negotiation to be had, but you also acknowledge that funding the government has to be bipartisan. So is the only way out of this for Democrats to completely drop their demands? Is there anything that Republicans are willing to give? And have there been any conversations? It doesn't even seem like the two sides are talking.
I'm so glad you asked the question. Why aren't you dropping all of your demands so that it makes it more palatable for Democrats to join you? I didn't put any on the CR. Leader Thune and I have tried to explain this a few times. There's nothing for us to negotiate. I cannot go to the CR and go, you know what, Democrats, you're right. Let me take out these 3 Republican priorities. I didn't add a single Republican policy or priority or preference to the CR. It is 100% totally clean. It is an exact status quo replica of what we're doing right now, which again is Biden-era policies and spending levels. To our great chagrin, but in good faith. I presented that because I didn't want to play games. We are responsible. We're not going to shut the government down for people who desperately need these services and all these things that I've said are stalled. And so we didn't, no gimmicks, no tricks. There's nothing that Leader Thune and I can go to Chuck Schumer and say, you know what, okay, we'll pull this off. Would that make it better? No, I don't have anything to give. I didn't put any of our priorities on the spending measure because, again, all we're trying to do in good faith is get 7 more weeks to finish that appropriations process that we've been all so excited about. Jay?
Who will own, if you're not able to extend these subsidies, which is a possibility, it seems, who will own the political impact from that if health insurance does go up 200%, as people are warning?
That's putting the cart like a mile in front of the horse.
I know.
I believe that the subsidy issue, that's the December 31 issue, is a complicated one. It hasn't worked well. It's filled with abuse. We have a lot of ideas on how to improve upon that if indeed that goes forward. And I mentioned yesterday, there's 535 members in the County House and Senate, and there's probably 400 different ideas on how to fix that. But we need the next couple of weeks to have those vigorous, deliberate debates, which is how the process is supposed to work. So I'm not going to forecast how that comes out, and neither could any of you, because those debates haven't been held yet. And that's kind of the irony, because Chuck Schumer is saying something that he knows isn't true. He's saying, oh, you guys snap your fingers. You and Leader Thune go in the back room and tell us how that's going to be resolved today so we can reopen the government. That's impossible for me to do. I have to have the input of all of our members so that they can figure that out. So that's part of the process.
Last question, Mr. Speaker. Can you just talk a little bit about your recent conversation you had with Senator Murray? Have you been personally lobbying any Senate Democrats to switch their votes in support of the CR?
No, they haven't exactly been ringing my phone off the hook, okay? I'm open, always have been for dialogue with anybody I'm saying is true and that we have every intention of moving the appropriations bills. And I said, yes, ma'am, of course it is. I say the same things privately that I say publicly. We are consistent, and that's why it's easy for me to stand up here and share the facts. When the simple truth is on your side, you have nothing to hide from. I'm just presenting this to the American people. This is the fourth time we've done that. I hate to drag you all out and go through all the details, but I've got to put on the case over and over because repetition apparently is the key to this. People are starting to recognize this is not a Republican shutdown. It is a Schumer Democrat shutdown. Again, why? Because they needed political cover. It's shameless. It is sad. Real people are hurting, and it needs to end. They'll have another opportunity this evening. And I sure pray, I hope you all will, that a handful of additional common sense people on the Democrat side will change their votes, reopen the government, so we can get back to all these issues as we desperately want to do. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.